Okay, I want to review about writing parallel lines, and then we'll do this. Then we'll do the practice assignment, okay? So first of all, remember that parallel lines have the same slopes, okay? So here's two equations. Both of them have a slope of 2. They're the same. So that means these two lines would be parallel. They have the same slope but different y-intercepts. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals, like a over b and negative b over a. So in numbers, this is 2/5, and this would be negative 5 over 2. Okay, so those two would be perpendicular lines. Also, when we multiply those two slopes together, the product is 1. Like a times negative b is negative ab, and b times a is positive ab, and that equals 1. Okay. So here I want to find, I want to decide if these are parallel or perpendicular. So these are the notes from Friday, but this was y equals x plus 11 and y equals negative x plus 2. So when there is no number in front of the x, we always know that there's always a 1 there. So my slope of this equation was 1, and this slope was negative 1, with the number is always assumed to be 1. That's the coefficient for this x, or our m value. So m is negative 1 in this equation. So we know that they're not equal, so that means they're not parallel. But if we multiply them together, we do get negative 1. Also, if we look at it as opposite reciprocals, we have 1 over 1, and then the opposite would be negative, and then you flip it over, and you still have 1 over 1. So they're still opposite reciprocals, and so they are perpendicular lines here. 1 is the only one that works like that, when it's just a positive or negative. Here we have y equals 3/4 x minus 1 and y equals negative 3/4 x plus 29. So here's a negative 3/4 and a positive 3/4. Well, they're not equal, so these are not parallel lines. And when we multiply them together, we do not get negative 1. So therefore, it's not perpendicular. So these would be intersecting but not perpendicular, or I often say neither. I think the STAR test is going to say intersecting but not perpendicular. Okay. Here we have y minus 4 equals 3 times x plus 2, and 2x plus 6y equals 10. So this happens to be in slope-intercept form. And if you were to recognize that, then you would see that the slope, the m value, is a 3. If not, you could go ahead and multiply it out and bring over the add 4 to both sides, and you would get 3x plus 10. Y equals 3x plus 10. So now we can see in the slope-intercept form that this slope was 3. Okay, so here, this one, it was in standard form, and what we want to do is find the slope of it, so we're going to solve for y. So we subtract 2x, divide by 6, and you get y equals negative 2/6x plus 10/6. That reduces to negative 1/3, and so this was the slope of our other line. So when we compare that one with the first slope, 3, or 3 over 1, you can see that they were not equal, so they're not parallel. And when we multiply them, they did multiply to negative 1, and so they are perpendicular. Remember, this is the sign for perpendicular. Okay? Okay, so we have a point, and we have the point slope form. So x1, y1 is the order of our point. The x comes first, then the y. And in this equation, you got to pay attention to where it goes. And our slope is always right here in front of the parentheses. So if our point is negative 2, 1, and our slope is 4, we put the 4 where the slope goes, and our equation's always going to have the opposite sign as our point does. So this is negative 2, so here in the equation, it's going to be a positive 2. Here's a positive 1, and so in the equation, it's going to be a negative 1. So that's how our point-slope form works. Okay, so here's an example. Write an equation of the line through 1, 3, and is parallel to the line y equals 3x plus 2. So we notice we circled the point, and we circled that we needed it to be parallel. And so we have our 3 is our slope. First thing we have to do is find our slope. So they had the same slope, okay? Then we're going to write out the point slope form and plug in our slope where it goes and the point where it goes. And we have our equation. And today we may go ahead and go into slope-intercept form when you distribute and then bring the number back over to this side. But on Friday, we stopped at point slope form. So if you haven't done the point slope form, if you haven't done that assignment from Friday, the answers are all in point slope form. And the question says put it in slope intercept form, but all the answer choices are point slope form. Right. So here's another example. We want the line to be perpendicular to this equation through this point. So our original slope is negative 3 over 2. So if we want it to be perpendicular, we want the opposite reciprocal. And so that means it's going to be positive 2 over 3. So we take that equation and put it in the point slope form. And then remember our signs are opposite. Like this is a positive 2, negative 2, negative 1, positive 1. And then today you're going to switch it further into the slope intercept form. Okay, so I want to write out just the steps. What do you do? So you are clear on what you do. So how to write an equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a given line through a point. Okay, so our first step is you're going to find the slope of the original line. Okay, so that means if it's not in y equals mx plus b form, then you should solve for y. And put it in y equals mx plus b form. Okay, and then you'll know that your slope is the m. Maybe you'll have it in point slope form and recognize it, so that would be okay too. But if it's in standard form, you can't tell your slope, but just looking at it. Okay, so our slope, first thing we're gonna do is find the slope of the original line. Okay, the second thing we wanna do is decide, are we doing parallel or perpendicular, and what would that slope, what would I do with the original slope for that? Okay, so the next step is so say your original slope is A over B, okay? So if you want to go parallel, so if you want to write a parallel line, would be the same thing. So we would write A over B is this, it's the same. Okay, if you want a line with the line of a perpendicular line, what would the slope of it be? The slope of a perpendicular line would be negative if this is positive, and then we would flip the fraction over. So it would be negative B over A, which is the opposite reciprocal. So opposite meaning, excuse me, opposite meaning positive and negative, and then reciprocal is when you flip your fraction over. Okay, so now we've got our new slope. And so you're going to put it in the slope-intercept form. We're going to use slope-intercept form, point-slope form. We're going to use point-slope form. Okay, so y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, and you're going to plug in the new slope. And you're going to plug in your point. That you want it to go through. And you're going to have your new equation. You may continue and go into slope-intercept form where you distribute solve for y to put the equation in slope-intercept form.